Strategic planning is the process of defining a strategy or direction and making decisions on how to allocate the resources of the organization to pursue this strategy. Successful organizations engage in this course of business process on an ongoing basis. The strategic plan serves as a roadmap that provides the organization direction and aligns resources. The process involves several sequential steps that focus on the future of the organization. The strategic planning process typically covers a 3 to 5 year time frame in which management considers both internal and external forces when formulating a plan. The guiding force behind the strategic planning process and where we start is the organization's mission, which is the core reason for existence of the organization and what makes it unique. We then move to a process of SWOT analysis. This is the analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in a typical starting point because it allows managers to consider both internal and external conditions. Then we consider the goals of the organization to ultimately develop a strategy. Managers determine the objectives for the planning cycle and then formulate organizational level strategies to accomplish these objectives through implementation. Each function, such as human resources within an organization, then formulates strategies that will link to support organizational level strategies. The strategic plan is reevaluated periodically because conditions may change and managers might react to ever-changing business environments differently. Regardless of which specific strategies are adopted for guiding an organization, having the right people will be necessary to make overall strategy work. If a strategy requires work or skills that are currently not available in the organization, it'll be time to find people who have those skills. Strategic HR management provides input for organizational strategic planning and develops specific HR initiatives to help achieve organizational goals. While it seems important to consider HR in the overall organization strategy, estimates are that only 30% of HR professionals are full strategic partners. Their primary role remains one of providing input to top management. Specific HR management strategies obviously depend on the strategies and plans of the organization. This figure highlights some common areas where HR should develop and implement appropriate strategies. To contribute to the strategic planning process, HR professionals provide their perspective and expertise to operating managers by doing the following. Understanding the business, which is knowing the financials and key drivers of business success, which is important to understanding the need for certain strategies. Focusing on key business goals. Programs that have the greatest relevance to business objectives should get priority. Third, knowing what to measure. Metrics are a vital part of the assessment process, which means picking those measures and then directly relating them to business goals is incredibly important. And finally, preparing for the future. Strategic thinking in human resource management requires preparing for the future, not forecasting on the past, except as a predictor of the future. Human resource planning is the process of analyzing and identifying the need for and availability of people so that the organization can meet strategic objectives. The focus of HR planning is to ensure the organization has the right number of people with the right capabilities at the right times in the right places. In HR planning, an organization must consider the availability and allocation of people to job over long periods of time, not just for the short term. HR plans can include several approaches. Actions may include shifting employees to other jobs in the organization, laying employees off, retaining current employees, and/or increasing the number of employees in certain areas. Factors to consider the current employees' knowledge, skills, and abilities, or KSAs, and the expected vacancies resulting from retirements, promotions, or other changes. To do this, HR professionals work with executives and managers. The steps in the HR planning process are shown in this figure. Notice that the process begins with considering organizational plans and the environmental analysis that went into developing those strategies. The figure includes an environmental analysis to identify the situation in which HR is operating. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are then considered. Then, the possible available workforce is evaluated by identifying both external and internal workforce needs. Once those assessments are complete, forecasts must be developed to determine both the demand and the supply for human resources. Management then formulates HR staffing plans and actions to address imbalances both short and long term. Specific strategies may be developed to fill vacancies or deal with surplus employees. Finally, HR plans are developed to provide specific direction for management of HR activities related to recruiting, selection, and retention. The most telling evidence of successful HR planning is a consistent alignment of the abilities and capabilities of the human resources within an organization to that organization's needs over time. Before managers in an organization begin strategic planning, they study and assess the dynamics of the environment in which they operate to better understand how those conditions might affect their plans. The process of environmental scanning helps to pinpoint strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that an organization will face on the planning horizon. This figure shows the HR elements of a SWOT analysis that are part of that environmental analysis. Opportunities and threats emerge from the external environment and can impact the outcomes of the firm. Many of these forces are not within the organization's control, but must be considered in the scanning process because they affect how we do business. Strengths and weaknesses of the organization represent internal factors that we either create or destroy value. Effectiveness for organizations is a measure of the ability of a program, project, or task to produce a specific desired result that can be measured. Efficiency is the degree to which operations are carried out in an economical manner. Efficiency can also be thought of as short-term measures that companies' inputs cost directly against the outputs and benefits. There are many ways of measuring the financial impact of HR practices of an organization, and many challenges associated with doing so. People-related costs are typically the largest controllable expense in organizations. Effective management of those costs can make a positive difference in the survival of that organization. Collecting and analyzing HR information can pinpoint waste and improper allocation of human resources. It's important that HR managers understand financial and operational measures that drive the business and relate decisions to key performance indicators as seen here. They include metrics, benchmarking, balanced scorecards, and audits, which can help the organization track HR performance and measure the value of HR practices. HR metrics are specific measures of HR practices. They are performance indicators of some element of HR, for example, turnover rate. Metrics are typically used to assess HR practices and results within the organization over time. A metric can be developed using costs, quantity, quality, timeliness, or other desired goals. Metrics can be developed to track both HR efficiency and effectiveness. HR and line managers collect and share data needed to track this performance. Data to track these measures come from several sources within the organization. Benchmarking is the process of comparing the business metrics and outcomes to an industry standard or best practice. In other words, the organization compares itself to best-in-class organizations that demonstrate excellence for specific processes. Benchmark is focused on external practices that the organization can improve its own processes and practices. When implementing benchmarking, managers should be careful to find organizations with similar contexts, cultures, operations, and size. Many HR professionals report that their organizations collect benchmark data on a planned, periodic basis, while others collect it as needed. Major obstacles to using benchmarks are uncertainty about how to collect information and what information to collect. One effective approach to measuring strategic performance of organization, including HR practices, is to use the Balanced Scorecard. The Balanced Scorecard is a framework organizations use to report on a diverse set of performance measures. The Balanced Scorecard balances financial and non-financial measures so managers focus on long-term drivers of performance and organizational sustainability. As shown here, the Balanced Scorecard measures performance in 4 areas. Financial measures. Traditional financial measures such as profit and loss, operating margins, return on investment, and return on assets are needed to ensure that the organization manages its bottom line effectively. Internal business processes. Product and service quality, efficiency and productivity, compliance with standards, and cycle times can be measured to ensure the operation runs smoothly and efficiently. Customer relations. Customer satisfaction, loyalty, and retention are important to ensure that the organization is meeting customer expectations and can depend on repeat business from its consumers. Learning and growth activities. Employee training and development, mentorship programs, succession planning, and knowledge creation and sharing provide the necessary talent and human capital pool to ensure the future of the organization. Organizational results in each of these areas determine if the organization is progressing towards its strategic objectives. One means for assessing HR performance is through an HR audit, which is similar to a financial audit. An HR audit is a formal research effort that assesses the current state of HR practices in an organization. The audit is used to evaluate how well activities in each of the HR areas have been performing so that management can identify areas for improvement. An HR audit often helps smaller organizations without a formal HR professional to identify issues associated with legal compliance, administrative processes, record keeping, retention, and other areas.